Flyers, Phillies, let's talk about them. Sixers, Eagles, let's talk about them. What the Union doing? Pull up with the crew and have a drink or two and let's talk about them. This a PHI bar. Bruce Willis, we die hard. I know you feel us, cause Philly fans is the best sports fans by far. No cheating here, we gon' keep it fair. You don't like my set, somebody help them. This the key, if we can disagree without disrespecting, everybody welcome. So what we talking about? Practice? What we talking about? Let's unpack this. Top shelf, sports talk, lights, cameras, we active.
Yo, it's your boy Jamar, Top Shelf Sports Talk. Back with another episode of the podcast, Season 3, Episode 4. You know, this episode we will dive into the Tom Thibodeau firing. We will talk about Giannis and KD. And we will also talk about one of the best, my personal favorite TV shows of all time. Still watch it to this day. Still, you know, if it's on or watching clips on, you know, TikTok or, you know, Facebook, whatever I catch it on, I watch them all the way through, and that's The Wire. You know, a lot of us that grew up in the inner cities and things of that nature, we grew up on that show. We grew up watching it. We grew up just loving the storyline. And the one season that a lot of us hated was season 2. But listening to like the Method Man and people like that who described season 2, it was the fact that the drug trade had, you know, the ports had a lot to do with the drug trade in Baltimore. So that's why that season was involved in it. Just to me, it was a little heavy in it, but you know, we'll get to that. Real quick, just to get into, you know, like I said, we're going to talk about Tom Thibodeau getting fired. Yeah, I think that was, to me, one of the worst decisions that you can make as an organization, especially if you don't have anything to follow up with it. And what I mean by that, like, you know, the Knicks fired Tom Thibodeau after getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, the furthest they've been in I don't know, years. I think since 2013 or something like that. That was like the first playoff stretch they won in years, and they decided to get rid of their head coach who got them there, and who's actually had them playing good basketball over the last couple of years. And it was rumblings that a lot of the players was not feeling the coaching style of Tom Thibodeau, saying that he played a lot of his starters a little too long. And it's like, for me personally, you know, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. People out there watching this video, watching this show, this episode here, can correct me if I'm wrong. But as a player, and well, I'll put it like this: at least back in the '80s and '90s, in the raw style or raw era of basketball, players never wanted to come out the game. They wanted to win, lose, and die with everything they had on the court. And even up to the early 2000s, you see AI as a Sixer, he played his heart out. He never wanted to come out the game. And for guys to complain that they play long stretches of minutes, a long time in the game, it's just like, why? Like, why do you want the game to be decided by somebody else if you're the franchise player? And this is all allegedly. Like, this is all allegedly. I don't have any facts, but this is what I'm hearing through the media and different outlets, that some of the players were complaining about the minutes that Thibs had them playing. And to me, like I said, it just doesn't make sense, because you should not want to come out the game, because this is your dream job. I get people get tired. I'm not saying it like that. People get tired. People get, you know, they need a break. You need a whistle every now and then. But most part, you know, out of 48 minutes in a game, most guys, most superstars want to play 40, 45 minutes a game. That's just most people. Now, I don't know if the guys that are complaining, I don't have any names, but if those guys that are complaining want to sit back and say that I only want to play 35, maybe 40. Like, I mean, if that's your preference, that's your preference. You do what you feel best for you, your body, your situation, and how you feel as a basketball player. But in all reality, in all actuality, why would you want to come out the game? Now, With that being the case, right? With that being the case, now players that say they said the players were going to the GM and the owner on exit, or not going to them, but in exit meetings, talking to the GM and the owner about that and saying that that was one of the reasons why they don't think they could play for Thibs, and the decision was made. So the thought process is now you got to find a new head coach. There's a couple guys out there that people thought that initially that they would go after Mike Malone and I forget the other guy from they got fired, the Timberwolves. Not the Timberwolves. Another coach got fired right before the playoffs. I can't remember his name, but they thought they would those would be probably especially Mike Malone was the person they were going to go after, and so far they've been going after people who already have jobs. Jason Kidd, Ime Udoka, Chris Finch. The list goes on. 5 different head coaches. The guy from Chicago. 5 different head coaches. They've been trying to that already have positions with teams already, and the New York Knicks are requesting or trying to request interviews with those teams, and it's like, don't you realize that they already have positions already? Don't you see that those guys got jobs already? And think about it. Jason Kidd was another one of them. Think about it. If you Jason Kidd, or not even Jason Kidd, if you are the Mavericks organization, you got the #1 overall pick. Jason Kidd just had your team in the finals last year. You got Nico Harrison, got all. I'm sorry if y'all see that. I went out for a minute. I don't know what's going on, but the #1 pick is probably going to be Cooper Flag. So if you if you're the Dallas Mavericks organization, especially Nico Harrison, if you would have granted that interview for the Knicks for Jason Kidd, you know how much flack you really would have caught. You know how much they would have roasted and killed you as a GM. You know how much they would have jumped all over you for that, and you just got yourself out of the fire by getting that #1 pick for you to get back into the fire to say that the Knicks can interview Jason Kidd. And if you want to be honest, I, I was shocked by the trade of Luka Doncic to the Lakers. I was completely shocked, totally caught off guard. I did not see anything like that happening. I actually saw the trade on Good Morning America, and when I saw it, I thought they were even trolling a little bit because it's like, what in the world would they trade Luka Doncic in? But if you think about just the what they got back in return with it, which was Anthony Davis and Max Christie, look at their back court or front court. Look at their front court. You got Gafford, AD. What's the young guy name? Likely. You know, Kyrie Irving's probably going to be out for the first half of the year. But they get Cooper Flag, and I'm not saying that his game is going to transcend to the NBA, but I mean, just off optics and off the paper, you're looking at like they have a hell of a team. They right back in the mix, and if you let Jason Kidd interview for the Knicks job, you lose all of that. But this show is not about the Mavericks. It's about the Knicks. A lot of people are going out there right now, or a lot of analysts, NBA, former NBA players, Charles Barkley, a lot of people are going out or coming out and saying that was the dumbest move that the Knicks organization could have made because you don't have a plan. Now, had you had a plan on what you were going to do to fulfill your head coaching vacancy, then we're talking something different. Then we're saying something different. But you have no plan. You have no process. You have nothing. It's just like you're like you put a fart out in the wind and try to hope that nobody smells it. But really, right now, that fart stinks. It smells bad. And you're looking bad because you had a hell of a coach. And I'm a Sixer fan. Y'all know that. I'm a Sixers fan. Y'all had a hell of a coach. And because a few players didn't like the playing times that he would make them play, you go in a different direction. That's fine if that's what you if you just believe that he wasn't the coach for you, that's fine. But at least have a plan. Have a plan in place. I don't understand with the finals, the NBA finals still going on. What was the need or the rush to fire him now? Like, what were you really getting out of getting rid of him now? So at the end of the day, like that to me was a bad decision. And at the end of the day, the Knicks organization needs to wake up and understand like your team is probably top 3, top 4 in the East right now. And that's even over my 76ers. Because one thing they got going for them is that they play down the stretch and they're healthy. So to mess it up by firing your head coach, just to me doesn't make sense. It really didn't make sense at all, and I don't get it. And at the end of the day, you made the move. You have to figure it out. You have to make sure that you don't. Oh, sorry. You have to make sure that you don't set your team behind for years to come. Because what happens is you start making decisions like this, and players look at it and say, "Well, is that team really stable? Does that team really have what it takes to win? Are they making decisions based off emotion and not strategy? Am I going to go there to win and win? And if you don't have a plan or something in place for things to take place, people are going to start looking the other way. You know what I mean? People are going to start looking the other way. And like I said, me personally, I care less. I care less because I want my Sixers to win. So if people don't go to the Knicks, I actually like it. Which brings me to my next part of the show, is the KD and Giannis conversation with the trade. We're getting traded. KD is open to trade, so is Giannis. But the question is, who gets them? And who has enough to pick up those contracts and is in position to win? Because that's the biggest thing. You have to be able to pay them and be in position to win. And if you're not in a position to win, those guys, especially Giannis, they're not going to want to come to your team. Now, here's the thing. I had a show a couple months ago where I was just live or something talking about it. And I said to people, I would trade for KD. And this is before I knew I had the number 3 pick. I would trade for KD and try to run it back one more year with Joel. Now, obviously, you can't get KD with Paul George on the roster because the money and everything don't line up. And truth be told, Phoenix is not going to take Paul George's contract. What would be the reason for them to trade KD if they're going to get another big contract in return that probably won't give them much on their investment? So it wouldn't make sense. So that's just hypothetically speaking, and we can't really speak like that because we got to speak in truth. The only way I'll do a trade for KD is if I don't have to give up my number 3 pick. Because if the trade for KD does not work out, if Joel B gets hurt or something like that, and our chances of actually competing are slim, then we set our franchise back for years. For years. Because Maxey and McCain, as good and talented as they are, and we only seen half of McCain, we can't put a franchise on their back right now and expect them to win. So so basically what happens is you start to get in a rebuild mode and blow it up. So that's why I wouldn't trade for KD by using my number 3 pick. That's exactly why I wouldn't do it. If I'm trading for KD, it's got to be like a Paul George or, maybe some other assets that we really don't have to try to get. Now, the only person that I will trade the number 3 pick for is Giannis. Because even though he's in his peak right now, even if Joel gets hurt, even if we move on from Joel, I believe Giannis still has enough upside left with him in him that Maxey and a bunch of other people around him that we could put around him can compete on high levels and compete for championships. I believe that can happen if you get a Giannis. KD is 37 years old. 37, like but don't get it wrong, he's no slouch. And whatever team he gets, he goes to, depending on the dynamic, the dynamic of the team. Pardon me. Like, I don't know, I got tongue tied there. Depending on the dynamic of the team, he still can have them competing for championships. Depending on, like, because people saying the Spurs guy, Wemby and De'Aaron Fox. He's a plug. He's experienced. He's knowledge. You know what I mean? He's championship winner. He comes in on that team, and that young team, and just shows them guys how to play basketball and be professional. That team will instantly be a team that can compete for championships. There's not much that they need him to do. They need to pick up the load every so often when it's, when Wemby's in maybe foul trouble or De'Aaron Fox is not playing. They need him to play a couple games here and there like that. But there's not much that they need him to do. And the difference, y'all might say, well, what's the difference between the Sixers? The Sixers, if Joel is not hurt, if Joel is hurt and he's out, and we don't have Paul George, obviously, we have Maxey and McCain. I just don't think those three are enough. I'm talking about Maxey, McCain, and Durant are enough to have you still competing on that high level. You would need Joel Embiid to make sure that works. You would need a healthy Joel Embiid to make sure that works. And to me, I just don't. I don't want to put all my eggs in the basket, because especially if I'm losing my number 3 overall pick, that just hurts me. That just hurts me. And see, San Antonio, I think they got the number 2 pick. They still got De'Aaron Fox is young, and Wemby is what, 3rd year. So it doesn't hurt them as much. We're aging. You know what I mean? They're still young, and they're getting. De'Aaron Fox is a little older, but they're still young. It works for them more than it works for us. But Giannis would be a perfect fit even without Embiid. Because, if you look at the gameplay and it could be coaching, it could be, positions and things like that made that hurt that trio from winning when in Phoenix. But if you look at the play of that Kevin Durant led, well, it wasn't even led, it was Devin Booker. But if you look at Kevin Durant's play to me in Phoenix, it's almost to me like it was like the Heat when they first got LeBron and Chris Bosh. Wade had to go to LeBron after a while and tell him, bro, I know I've been here. I know y'all came here to join me, but this is your team. Take it over. Let's go. We're going right off your coattail. And to me, I don't know if those conversations was ever had in Phoenix. And that's why you got that team to look the way it looked. Because that team should have easily been in the Western Conference Finals championships for years. I mean, Bradley Beal kind of messed them up. I think firing Monty Williams kind of messed them up. But that team should have been competing for championship for years to come. There's no way a team like, and no shade to OKC, but they're young. With the experience that Phoenix had, there's no way OKC should have beat a Phoenix team. With that type of firepower, that's just on paper. Now, with the right build and structure around them, it should have been even better. And they had that under Monty Williams, but they wanted to go in a different direction, and it didn't work out. But like I said, just to recap real quick, in case you guys got confused, because I was jumping all over the place when it comes to this KD and Giannis trade situation. I'd rather trade a number 3 pick for Giannis before I would trade it for Kevin Durant. Now y'all can debate me in the comments below all you want. That's just my thoughts. Now, truthfully, to be honest, I'm a Philly guy all the way through, and I believe a lot. I'd rather not trade the number 3 pick at all, draft the number 3 pick, and run it back. And I told people, I'm giving Joel Embiid and Paul George to trade deadline to prove that they got what it takes to win. To trade deadline. If they slacking or don't look good at trade deadline, it's time for me to move on. And again, if I got Maxey, a number 3 pick, Jared McCain, a Dimbone, a couple of my young stars, Yabusele, a couple of our young stars, I can still maneuver around and try to do something different. And whatever I get back from Embiid and Paul George, that would be an added bonus too. It won't be nothing good but a bunch of role players, but I'm taking it. I'm taking it. You know what I mean? But again, so y'all know, I am not trading my number 3 pick for Kevin Durant, but I will trade my number 3 pick for Giannis Antetokounmpo. But think about if you had Giannis and you had a healthy Joel Embiid on the same team. Think about that, man. Think about how dangerous that could be for the league. Think about how much pressure we put on the league with that type of front court. Think about it. That right there would be hard to stop. It would be hard to stop. Now the question is, will them two be able to be on the court at the same time and not both be ball hogs? Will one of the other sacrifice their offense for the other? Now that would be the case, because Maxey gonna go out and score. Jared McCain gonna get his little points. But the two, Embiid and Giannis, could they coexist out there? That'd be the question. So there you go. There's my thought process on the Tom Thibodeau firing, on Giannis and KD. And like I said, the third part of the show, we're going to talk about The Wire. Now, I listen to, anybody that know me, I listen to sports talk radio all day long. From the time I get up in the morning to the time I get home at night, sports talk radio. And the funny thing is, I was thinking about doing a show just solely off of, not even, no sports related, just off of those shows, like The Wire. I didn't watch The Sopranos or anything like that, but just based off of those shows, try to, gauge the interest of how people rank the shows. But as I listen to people like kind of not disrespect The Wire, but not give it its total props, like The Wire, you got to always remember The Wire was a story from start to finish. And a lot of people don't pay attention to the fact that it covered the number one topics in America: the drug trade, the ports, the police, the news, politics, and the education system. So it covered everything, which made it that much better than most of the other shows. That again, you might say, well, how can you say it's better than the other shows and this, that, and the third? You never saw them. And you're right. I'm not going to say it's 100%. This is just my opinion. That's just anything that you see on this podcast is my opinion. Doesn't mean that I'm right, 100% right, or wrong, or whatever the case may be. The storyline of The Wire, to me, was one of the best put storylines together in television history, because it covered things that a lot of us, people from the inner city, we didn't care. We didn't really care about politics. A lot of us worried about the police because we were doing things that we shouldn't have been doing. But the education system, we didn't care about. And it brought light to how all that is an everyday occurrence in our lives. And it was geniusly written and put together. And the way it was put together, each year, it was 5 seasons. Each year had its focal point. And like I said in the beginning of the podcast, the only year that a lot of us felt as though we could have done without it was season two. Because to me, I believed they were trying to go the Sopranos route. But listening to an interview that Method Man had on the Breakfast Club, he was talking about it, and because people told him that was one of the not worst seasons, but one of the seasons that they didn't like or didn't, you know, like watching. And he was saying, like, if you really think about Baltimore and the drug trade, the ports had a lot of to do with how the drugs came into Baltimore. And the ports were ran by the Italians. So that had to tie into it to make you understand where everything came from and how everything got there. And it was like, all right, since you put it like that, since you said it like that, I see it. I see what you're saying now. And that is why season two seemed more like a Soprano-like season than it did The Wire. They mixed and matched, stuff around the city that was going on while Avon was in jail to keep that part of it alive. But I liked how they got right back to it in season three. I liked how they started the war between. You seen the takeover between, from Avon to Marlowe. You see how, and here's the thing. This is true in everyday life. You see how best friends, brothers, how we sit here and say we brothers, go from being on top with each other to the money making them feud. Because instead of them saying, like Avon said at the end, String was right. String was right. F all these corners, F all this beef, ain't none of it worth it. And at the end of the day, if you think about it, that translates into everyday life. Half of us sit in the world, and we have friends that we truly, truly appreciate and truly love, right? But for some reason or another, something always breaks us apart. Money, women, whatever the case may be, breaks us apart. But the thing is, if we only could find a way to stay and stick with each other, we make everything so much difficult for everybody else. And I'm talking about the other races and cultures out there in the world. And that's the significance of like The Wire and how Avon and Stringer fell apart because they were two different. The world had made them believe two different things. Avon still wanted to be street. String wanted to take it to a different level, but he still wanted the street backing. He still wanted the money off the street. You still get the street, but instead of us doing it on a day-to-day basis, no, we just sit back. We become the big homies and let the little homies come to us, and they worry about all the drama. They buy off of us. We supply the hood. They worry about the drama. But a lot of times our visions be clouded because people put stuff in front of us, and all we know and all we see is what we think we want and what we think we know. So again, to me, that was one of the best shows that I ever watched, and I watched nothing but really sports. But back in the day, I used to race home to watch that show every Sunday at 10 o'clock. Every Sunday at 10 o'clock, HBO The Wire was on. So if you disagree with my show choice, you let me know in the comments below. You know what I mean? And we can have a talk about it, a debate about it. We go live about it if you want. But that is my time for this Sunday morning, episode 4, season 3 of Top Shelf Sports Talk podcast. I appreciate all who support me, who've been watching my shows, who've been commenting and interacting on the videos, the little shorts I put out from the different shows. I appreciate y'all for doing that. It really means a lot. I really appreciate it. And like I say always, look below. Here's all my socials right here. Right there, you see it just flash. There's the QR code. Click on that, take a picture of that, or just type in the socials. Follow me on every platform I have. Support the page. Push it out there. Share it to your people, man. I'm really working hard, really trying to figure out a way to take over the sports entertainment podcast world. It's your boy Jamar, Top Shelf Sports Talk. Peace.
Flyers, Phillies, let's talk about them. Sixers, Eagles, let's talk about them. What the Union doing? Pull up with the crew and have a drink or two and let's talk about them. This a PHI bar. Bruce Willis, we die hard. I know you feel us, cause Philly fans is the best sports fans by far. No cheating here, we gon' keep it fair. You don't like my set, somebody help them. This the key, if we can disagree without disrespecting, everybody welcome. So what we talking about? Practice? What we talking about? Let's unpack this. Top Shelf, sports talk, lights, cameras, we active.